What's going on, everyone? It is the Derv, and welcome to the second iteration of my Peacekeeper Titan build. As promised, we are going without prismatic, and we are going to go back to our faved Arc Titan. Arc Titan, of course, is going to be one of the staples in just about every Titan Lovers build this season, and is certainly no different here. It's because I haven't done Peacekeepers before, I thought it appropriate to do my version of the Peacekeeper build when running Arc Titan. Of course, we're going to be featuring barrow-dyad and a couple of different heavy options that you can pair with it. And when you pair it with a bunch of different things going on with roaming supers, as well as different things you can do to mod your character, it's going to be an absolute blast. Hopefully you guys find this video well. It is incredibly easy to set this build up, and I just can't wait to share with you. Let's go, everyone. So to get started with our non-prismatic elemental Peacekeepers build, we are going to go with the Striker Titan subclass. Our super of choice is going to be Fists of Havoc. Yes, it is true you could always opt in to go with Thunder Crash, but because we are going to be focusing on weapon damage more, Fist of Havoc is going to be regenerating at an obscene rate. Add to that the fact that your barrow-dyad is going to be increasing in damage the longer that you remain on target, simply by having the target lock perk equipped. On top of the Peacekeeper's buff, you're going to get this super back extremely quickly, which means you will be able to proc it more. So yes, Thunder Crash is more fun and technically more damage per use than Fists of Havoc. However, because you will be able to activate Fists of Havoc more often, Fists of Havoc will prove to be the better one, as I just confirmed getting out of damage testing with this build. For abilities, we're going to go with Rally Barricade. 38-second cooldown, but trust me, you're not going to have to wait that long. I prefer the Strafe Lift. I also prefer Thunderclap because I like to be able to use my melee from a distance, but I guess technically you can use whichever ones that you want. I just really like being able to shoot it at enemies that might not be right in front of me. For the grenade, I highly recommend using Flashbang Grenade, although you might have a different preference. There isn't technically a wrong preference here. The reason I prefer Flashbang is it blinds targets, and when blinded, unstoppable champions are stunned. That means I don't have to worry about equipping a rocket launcher and or a fusion rifle if I'm going into an activity where there are unstoppable champions. And because I can blind them with my flashbang, and because my weapons are going to be powerful enough and taking advantage of bolt charge, it's not something you necessarily have to worry about. So no, you don't get the most powerful grenade, but I think it is the most useful. For aspects, we're going to be going with Touch of Thunder. Your flashbang, pulse, lightning, and storm grenades have enhanced functionality. Flashbang Grenade emits an additional blinding flash on bounce. This is kind of a nice quality of life add-on to the flashbang. It means you get an additional blinding flash, which means if you don't stun that unstoppable champion with the first flash, you definitely will by the second. Next up, we're going to go with Storm's Keep. Casting your class ability to grant a moderate amount of bolt charge stacks to you and nearby allies. When behind your barricade, you and allies gain stacks of bolt charge over time, and your weapons can discharge max stacks of bolt charge. So add to this the fact that we're using Peacekeepers, and add to this the fact that we're using Fists of Havoc. We are going to be able to cause an insane amount of destruction within very little time. And oh, by the way, your barrow-dyad is unlimited ammo, so you can theoretically proc it as much as you want. And of course, once you have max stacks of bolt charge, you become amplified as long as you have your artifact equipped the right way, which we're going to go over here in a minute. For fragments, there's going to be some debate on which ones people prefer, but these are the ones that I think work the best, at least for me. You may have different takes on it. Spark of Frequency is number one. Melee hits increase your equipped weapon's reload speed and stability for a short duration. While amplified, the effects are increased and you gain increased stacks of bolt charge from all sources. So this is another reason why I like to use Thunderclap, because I don't necessarily have to be in the face of enemies. If I'm pinned down somewhere, I can throw out the Thunderclap and also gain stacks of bolt charge from all sources once it hits an enemy. Next up, we got Spark of Brilliance. Defeating a blinded target with precision damage creates a blinding explosion. Plus 10 intellect, but because I'm using a roaming super, I don't quite care about that, but I'll take it. Since we're using a flashbang grenade, this is going to go hand in hand with Spark of Brilliance. And of course, more blinding explosions means more blinded enemies. So in a group of ads or a group of beefier yellow bars, that's going to prove to be extremely useful, thinking in things like onslaughts, maybe certain raids or certain nightfalls where it just gets to a little hairy, periodically. Next up, we got Spark of Ions. Defeating a jolted target or defeating a target with bolt charge creates an ionic trace. You will be generating ionic traces fairly regularly, although we are going to have to rely on our energy weapon, which I will be going through here in a second, to generate more frequent ionic traces. The fact that we can discharge bolt charge very regularly means that we still will generate them even if we're using our main ad clear weapon. Last but not least, a Spark of Amplitude. Rapidly defeating targets while you are amplified creates an orb of power. It doesn't say what kind of weapon you have to use. You just have to rapidly defeat targets when you are amplified. So I guess theoretically that could be with a grenade, could be with your melee, or it could be with any weapon in your arsenal. For stat distribution, I highly recommend maxing out Resilience and Discipline, and then tertiary would be Strength in that order. The reason I say that Strength is kind of the third most important is because your Thunderclap really isn't going to be used that often to where you're going to necessarily miss out on it. However, your flashbang grenade has the lowest cooldown of any grenade that you could equip. So having that discipline at the highest level you can possibly farm to for your armor stats is going to help you immensely, because the more blind that you generate, the more precision damage you can generate, the more blinding explosions you generate, and of course you're going to be dealing out stacks of bolt charge, you're going to be exercising max stacks of bolt charge with your weapons and abilities regularly anyways. So I think that's going to take the cake here. You want to keep everything else that you aren't too focused on at least a T3 so that you are not getting penalized by a cooldown for dipping below that. For weapons, it's not going to be too complicated. It's going to be very similar to the prismatic version with a couple of tweaks. First up, we're going to be running with, of course, barrow-dyad. I highly recommend crafting it with Taken Ambition and Target Lock, and specifically with Peacekeepers, everything is going to buff and stack off of everything, including all of your bolt charge stacks. Next up, we've got the Guardian Games Trace Rifle. I highly recommend, if you have a triple chap and jolting feedback, or at least bare minimum a jolting feedback perk attached to one of these, that is the one that you run for this. Go ahead and throw a backup mag to give yourself 104 rounds for the magazine. Super easy to use, super easy to proc jolting feedback, and you can fire this from a distance and also create quite a bit of havoc and as well, stunning overload champions. For the heavy slot, you've got two options, either Watchful Eye or Pro Memoria. Watchful Eye is nice, of course, because you can have it rolled with Jolting Feedback, Rolling Storm. You can put Overflow on it. This one has Field Prep. There's a couple of different powerful rolls with this. And even though the magazine is a little bit lacking in terms of love that you could throw on a backup mag and still do quite a bit of damage. Your flip side would be to go with Pro Memoria. Reconstruction and bait and switch. Yes, I know you don't have jolting feedback, but having 164 rounds in the magazine might be more fun, considering that you're going to be gaining stacks of bolt charge from behind your barricade anyway, and weapons can discharge max stacks regardless of what kind of weapon it is, so it doesn't technically need to be an arc weapon. In fact, Pro Memoria might even be better simply because you can dump more rounds at a 35% damage buff for 8 seconds when you proc it by the mechanic. So in the intro video, you saw me using Watchful Eye. I actually didn't do a run with Pro Memoria just to compare and contrast, because no two Quarter Blades runs are technically ever the same. But I could venture to say that given the amount of ammo that you can store, and with Reconstruction and the plus 35% to bait and switch, and the fact that you're going to be discharging max stacks of bolt charge thanks to your aspects, this might be a very, very, very good one to put ahead of Watchful Eye. For the helmet, it's going to be up to you kind of how you mod it. This is how I ran it when I modded mine. I go ahead and put on a strand siphon because, of course, my main ad clear weapon is strand. I also have a harmonic siphon. Because I was running 2 arc weapons, I wasn't really too concerned with taking a whole section away by just putting on a harmonic siphon. You could theoretically put a bunch of other stuff on here in place of it, thinking like special heavy or special ammo finder, but you don't really need like a dynamo, an ashes to assets, maybe a power preservation if you want to be a pal to your allies and generate more orbs of power. But even the hands-on is going to be kind of pointless because you're going to be doing so much weapon damage anyways. It's really not going to matter because you're going to be getting your super back extremely quickly anyways. Go ahead and throw on a heavy ammo finder because, of course, we're still going to be landing on our heavy weapon during DPS phase and whatever general armor mod that you need. For the gauntlets, I highly recommend putting on a strand loader, a firepower, and a heavy-handed. The reason that we're not spamming either of these two right here is we're not going to be getting our abilities back fast enough to really have to worry about 10-second cooldowns between orbs of power. So having one of these, you still get to be able to proc orbs of power, which means, of course, you're going to be, getting your abilities back, much faster than if you didn't have any of these. And then go ahead and throw on a general armor mod for effect. You could make the argument to put just a firepower on here, drop the heavy-handed altogether since you're really only taking it for the melee hits that you're going to be generating for your thunderclap with the fragments that you have selected, and you can bump this up to a major armor mod. For the chest armor, go ahead and put on your correct reserve mods that pairs with the heavy weapons. So whether that's arc, put on harmonic. If it's strand, put on strand. Go ahead, throw on 2 elemental damage resistances, and go ahead and put on whatever general armor mod that you need. Okay, so if you missed my first video, no big deal. We're going to go through Peacekeepers real quick. While wielding a machine gun, handling airborne effectiveness and movement are all improved, and damage against combatants will increase the longer you remain on target. Submachine guns are reloaded when stowed. So just a quick recap of what we just went through. Because we have the aspects selected that we do, and because we're running Peacekeepers, and because we have target lock on our barrow-dyad, we're basically going to be doing bonus on top of bonus on top of bonus with Peacekeepers, with our aspects, and with our origin trait, or I guess our callus refit for barrow-dyad, all adding together to give us insane amounts of damage in a very short amount of time. Remember, you're putting out 720 rounds per minute. So when you see those numbers popping up where it's, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and sometimes even 8,000, depending on the length of time that you're sitting on a target and the elemental surges for whatever activity you're running, that's going to be an insane amount of damage that you can do with virtually just ordinarily a wimpy submachine gun. Barrow-dyad quickly became one of my top weapons, even though initially I did not like it that much. So Peacekeepers really brings out the boom, so to speak, on top of the stuff you can already do with your favorite Arc Titan. For modifications, I go ahead and recommend Absolution, Innervation, and Insulation. Insulation is important because, of course, we want to proc our class ability, our barricade, as often as possible. So a little extra bump to the cooldown of our 38-second standard cooldown barricade is going to simply just be a nice quality life for you to have. And, of course, put on whatever general armor mod that you need. Last but not least is going to be the class item. Go ahead and throw on a Font of Restoration to increase your health regeneration. Keep in mind the first orb of power you pick up is going to be 30 to your recovery. Go ahead and throw on a Reaper since we are going to be using our class ability quite frequently. It's going to be nice to have that orb of power waiting for us to further cool it down faster. And last but not least, go ahead and put Outreach on. It reduces your melee cooldown when using your class ability. You could easily substitute this out for your bomber in case you only have 2 stat spikes in Resilience and Discipline. Just get your grenade back even faster, throw it out, get some more blinding explosions. Go ahead and max it out and put on whatever general armor mod that you need. And if you have the Artifice armor mod equipped, make sure you have it adjusted accordingly. For the artifact, you can mod this however you technically need, but I think what I have on here is going to be pretty decent for virtually whatever you find yourself in. Go ahead and throw on Overload machine guns, piercing sidearms, and Overload trace rifles. Of course, I am fully aware that I was running with 2 Overload weapons, So that's why I have the piercing sidearms on. I would obviously switch out my energy weapon if I'm going to be going up against barrier champs. In the second column, go ahead and put on overclock and load. While your amplified or bolt charge arc weapons gain increased handling and reload speed. That's going to be super useful if you're using Watchful Eye for your heavy weapon, as well as the Guardian Games Trace Rifle. And then more importantly, you're going to put on Unraveling Orbs and Vile Weave, since we're going to be maining barrow-dyad through virtually all of our activities. In the third column, go ahead and put on Dielectric. Defeating arc to buff targets grants bolt charge. That's going to be where your Guardian Games Trace Rifle is going to shine the most. In the fourth column, go ahead and put on Flashover. When you gain maximum stats of bolt charge, you become amplified. Lightning bolts deal more damage. That's going to be an important one. I do have Horde Shell on here. Now, if you are damaging an unraveled target, which means you're picking up your orbs of power and then unraveling the next target with your barrow-dyad, you do have the chance to spawn a threadling. However, it's not quite as common, obviously when we're using an arc class, to have that happen, and because we're going to be huddled behind our barricade on a regular basis. And Harsh Refraction is going to be nice if you are running a Trace Rifle, because you get that bonus damage to targets afflicted by the elemental debuffs matching their elemental type. So Jolting Feedback is the debuff, and your Guardian Games Trace Rifle is going to benefit immensely from that. Last but not least is going to be Limit Break. Casting your super while you're critically wounded or have an elemental buff matching your super element grants a period of increased super damage. You can pair this with your Fists of Havoc and do increased super damage, which means your Fists of Havoc at least is more respectable than what it typically is. Fists of Havoc, of course, is kind of more of an add clearish super, so being able to get a little extra super buff to the damage is a nice quality of life with Limit Break. Last but not least, overall, is going to be Heavy Ordnance Regeneration. This makes the most sense considering we're going to be running with a heavy machine gun no matter what in our heavy slot. And you can also boost this to, while Heavy Ordnance Regeneration is active, defeating powerful combatants, disorients nearby rank and file combatants. So you have the ability to not only be blinding enemies with your class setup, but you also have the ability to do that again, regardless of what heavy machine gun you are using. One of the reasons I think you should try this build is, hey, if you've never paired Peacekeepers with barrow-dyad on an Arc Titan and tried Fists of Havoc, you just don't know just how quickly you can get all of your damages, all of your buffs, all of your abilities back until, you put it all together and take it for a spin. This build is incredibly easy to use. It focuses on the increased regeneration rate of your super with, comparison to your weapon damage. The fact that barrow-dyad takes, puts out so much damage so quick, as well as the Peacekeepers, as well as your target lock on barrow-dyad pairing with the Peacekeeper damage buff. I mean, it's just a very nice unlimited round way to just, kind of sit back, let your bolt charges do what they got to do, and let barrow-dyad do what it does best, which is just dump huge amounts of damage, get your Taken Blights procced, dump them into your enemies, dump them into your bosses. I like to use this when I run out of heavy ammo for the rest of the damage phase during Court of Blades, but obviously if it was a raid, I'd be trying to maybe switch over to Pro Memoria and using barrow-dyad as kind of a backup DPS weapon. Again, unless I have my bolt charges, in which case it's going to be, better, to maybe start with it. So just use your best judgment. The other reason I think it's good to try this build is, Peacekeepers has been around for quite a long time. Arc Titan with Storm's Keep has been the talk of the town. Certainly nothing I'm going over is going to, break the bank in terms of originality. There's tons of videos out there regarding Peacekeeper. There's tons of videos out there regarding barrow-dyad. There's tons of videos out there regarding Arc Titan and what you can do hiding behind your barricade. But it just goes to show that Arc Titan can really do a lot of things, and this is one more way that Arc Titan, pun intended, shines above a lot of other builds that Titans run, at least in this season. Next season, with the new expansion dropping and all that, we're going to be in for a treat. We're not going to know kind of where the metas are and things like that, but I'm hoping that Arc Titan doesn't completely just fall off the map as far as power goes. I like where it's at. I like the easy use. Titan lovers, of course, like the easy use. And honestly, I'm not a Titan main, so If you're watching this video and you are more of a warlock or a hunter or whatever, or maybe you're just a casual player, you just kind of occasionally play each class, but you don't really have a favorite, maybe this could become your new favorite. It's really easy to put together. All the weapons are readily available, and you can mix and match weapons if you don't have the exact setup that I do, as long as you have your barrow-dyad. That is the main subject of this build. So if you did find anything helpful in this video, please consider liking and subscribing. If you know a gardener out there who could benefit from a build like this, please consider sharing this video with them or sending them my way. My goal is to help as many people enjoy this game as possible. As always, I want to thank all my supporters for the good words, the kind words, the good vibes that they send my way, the encouragement, and of course the feedback. When I misstep on something, or where I overquote something, or I, just completely knock it out of the park with whatever I'm saying. I wouldn't have the followers that I have if I didn't have people helping me, along the way. And that's my goal, is just, of course, to help as many people as possible. Also, if you guys are looking for a non-toxic gaming community, my Discord is steadily growing. We got a lot of active people in there, a lot of very kind-hearted, patient, easygoing, down for whatever kind of players. And whether you're just looking for pals to run some strikes or gambit with, or you're looking for some pals to maybe, check out the Ride of 9 stuff, there's people in there, high skilled and just starting out. Everyone's been super nice, and I wouldn't be able to advertise my Discord as kind of a safe haven for, solo players, or maybe players that never really had that part of a, that family atmosphere in a clan. They are what makes it. So shout out to my Discord. I feel like I shout out you guys every video, but you guys really do make it a very welcoming place. Every time someone joins, there's a bunch of people just waving to say hi. Complete strangers just reaching out, spreading kindness and spreading love, and that's what it's all about. So, all right, I'm going to switch over, just do a quick little voiceover of another highlight reel. And, hopefully you guys like this build, but of course you can always let me know in the comments. Of course, I'll have a dim link in the description as well for those who want to just direct copy and skip the video altogether. So like I said before, nothing that I've touched on today is anything that is brand new. These are all things that people have been mixing and matching with Arc Titan all season. Peacekeepers, with its ability to proc and use bolt charge from sitting behind your barricade on top of the buff you're going to get from barrow-dyad in general. And then, of course, you mix that with the retrofit for target lock, and the increasing and escalating damage and weapon buffs that you get simply by using the exotic armor. Make this virtually one of the easiest Titan builds to use. Virtually no mechanics except just throwing down your barricade and letting your armor and your weapons do the work for you. So hopefully this can help someone out there. Hopefully you guys like this video. This is one of the more fun builds out there. I don't know necessarily if I would consider it ready for a GM, but I guess depending on the GM of choice, you could theoretically see that in some of your lobbies. Anyways, guys, I appreciate all the support, and I will see you guys next time. Take care.